Back to the Future is possibly the greatest film ever made. It's a movie that is close to my heart, and makes it flutter like a butterfly on acid. Let's get on down the road and talk about it.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Every now and then, a movie comes along that blows you away. It makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. A movie that you can watch again and again and never get bored. For me, that movie is Back to the Future. I absolutely love it. I know what some of you will say, time travel doesn't work like that. Seriously now, does anyone fecking know how it works? Really? If you do, then fair play to you. It makes me laugh when people try and debate a subject that no one actually has any real experience with. Does anyone know what would actually happen if you could travel through time? No? Didn't think so. To me, this film sets the standard all other popcorn movies must match, the one that leaves them all crying by the side of the road as it speeds off. There have been many movies that have tried to match it, but they just haven't quite hit the same level. There is a reason this had such a huge impact on pop culture. From start to finish, it is a kick-ass, fun, enjoyable movie. A tight, well thought out beginning gives way to a fast-paced second act that doesn't bother pausing for breath. The plot is dead simple. Marty McFly, a perfectly cast Michael J. Fox, travels back in time and bumps into his parents as teenagers. He must then find a way to get back home again. Oh, and his mom ends up liking him and wants to get in his pants.
You serious?
That's pretty much it, but there is so much more to this movie than Martin trying to fend off his mother's advances. It is set up in such a way that nearly everything that happens early on serves as a setup for a payoff later down the line. It sets them all up, and then knocks them out of the park one by one, and it does it with great style as well. You only have to look at the opening scene of the movie as it pans round Doc Brown's place. There are so many subtle hints of what is to come later, or things that will only make sense later in the movie. You may not even notice most of them first time round. You would need to go back and watch it 3 or 4 times to notice them all. When the pain in the ass lady thrusts a flyer into Martel's hand at the start. The flyer is about saving the clock tower, and it just so happens to have the exact time that lightning struck the tower in 1955. Will this come in handy later, I wonder? The only reason Marty keeps the flyer is because his girlfriend Jennifer writes her phone number on the back of it.
We do now.
This is it.
The characters in this film are on the money. Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown the mad scientist plays a great part in this.
Great Scott.
Unhinged, frantic, and also a genius. His rants seem to make no sense whatsoever, but also if you listen, they make perfect sense. In this film, and in the second and third one, he manages to basically lay out the whole plot, and all the obstacles facing them, in less than a minute. All delivered like a legend by Chris Lloyd. Done in a way that you would think a man of science would lay it out. No fluff, no bullshit, just facts. Biff Tannen, played by Thomas Wilson, does a great job as the antagonist. Big, mean and stupid, he takes a dislike to Marty the first time they meet, and it never lets up. If you have never shouted McFly,
Hey, McFly!
at anyone in your life, then
You should be ashamed of yourself!
Leah Thompson and Crispin Glover do cracking jobs as Marty's dysfunctional parents, and as their teenage selves in 1955. Crispin's bumbling nerdy George McFly comes across as likable. But you wish he'd grow a set. Okay, I guess he finally does and lands one hell of a punch on Biff, but for most of the movie, he's as wet as a submarine's number plate. Hats off to Crispy though, he plays him really well. Tom soon goes from an older, alcohol-soaked woman who used to have hopes and dreams, to a hopeful, upbeat, and let's face it, horny teenager. Yeah, it's awkward as hell at times, as she constantly wants a piece of Martone. But it does add to the comedy, especially watching Martin squirm like mad, and nearly lose it every time she tries it on with him. Put yourself in his shoes, you would probably break both your arms to get out of that situation if faced with it. As I have already mentioned, Mikey Jade Phlox is perfect for this role. He's vulnerable, slightly unsure of himself, and sometimes acts like he doesn't know his arse from his elbow. It makes you like him even more though. He always stands up for himself, even though he's not the biggest or strongest. You simply cannot help but root for him every step of the way. Even when he makes stupid decisions and cannot back down from being called a chicken. What makes him so likable is that he is well aware of his flaws, but once he puts his mind to something, he forgets that they exist, until they rear their ugly heads again. He is not some spoiled asshole that was born with every advantage in life. He is not a world-renowned clever clogs, nor a cool under-pressure tough guy. Mart is just what most of us would be in his incredible situation, just a spunky kid figuring it all out as he goes along. The sets and costumes in this film are great as well. You actually feel like Hill Valley is a real place with real people. The main square, which was filmed on Universal's back lot, was used to its full potential, and it's cool to see it in 1985 and then again in 1955. Everything is just more polished, crisper and clean-cut in 1955 compared to the 80s. Martha looking around the town and taking everything in, really does add to the sense of what the feckerty feck, is this a dream? Looking back on this movie today, it is full of nostalgia and it really brings you back to the 80s. Meekel's clothes are also iconic. The red vest, the denim jacket and jeans, and of course the Nike high-top sneakers. How many of us back in the day, and even now at fancy dress parties, want to dress like Marty McFly? Let's also not forget about things like the DeLorean, the skateboarding, the shades, the guitars, and the flux capacitor. I am sure there are others I have missed out. But everything just oozes cool. The music in Back to the Future is on point as well. From The Power of Love by Huey Lewis, to the main theme tune and everything in between, it just fits perfectly. The sound effects are cool as shit as well. The sound of the DeLorean door opening for the first time, cool as hell. The sound of the flux capacitor being switched on, to the sound of the car traveling back in time. Even the little chime noises that happen throughout the film only add to the charm. If you know your stuff and you hear it, you should instantly think Back to the Future. I cannot speak highly enough of this movie. It's funny, relatable, and stands the test of time. The writing is solid and the performances are memorable. If you are a child of the 80s, tell me you have never sat in a car and pretended to go back to the future?
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Tell me you have never pretended to hang off the back of something on your skateboard and pretended to be pulled along, or pretended to swing from an imaginary clock tower. Back to the Future is one of the most enjoyable films ever made. It's nearly 40 years old, and it's still a damn near perfect movie. Sadly, they don't make them like this anymore, but then again we always can revisit them. That's why they're classics. When you really break Back to the Future down, it's not about the stakes. Beneath all the jokes, the awkward mother-son flirting, the time travel, and the action-packed countdown sequences, all that remains is a theme so universal that we keep returning to it time after time. Will you ever understand your parents? Or more importantly, will they ever understand you? Well, that's about it from me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, then please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will speak to you next time. And remember, stay safe out there.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?